All right. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, look, from managing millions at the bank as a market manager to closing millions in commercial real estate. Stay tuned. And by the way, subscribe to the channel because today we have Sergio Lopez, who knows how to build wealth for himself and his clients. Take it away, Sergio. How are you?
I'm good, John. How you doing today?
Fantastic, fantastic. And look, I know we're buddies off screen as well, and I've been
Yeah,
loving the way that you've been able to transition, man. I knew you at the bank,
yeah,
doing, managing millions and people and markets and stuff like
yeah,
that. And then all of a sudden, bam, like there was a
yeah.
change in the way that you did things and the vision that you had. And I know you have a great wife that's a power couple scenario. So we're excited to have you on
hmm
the Go4CEO channel and share about what is going on, man. What was that transition like?
Yeah, it was different. It was much different coming from a large organization that has the processes, has the procedures, and really, I was in banking for 17 years, so it's something that I knew like the back of my hand, and transitioning to commercial real estate. While I've always been more of a business commercial type of relationship builder from the get-go. So the transition of relationship building, it was actually very simple. Matter of fact, I think it's even easier to get business in commercial real estate than it was in banking, because it's a different value proposition that clients look for in a real estate mindset compared to financial. And I honestly think it's easier from that standpoint. But when you're a self-employed entrepreneur and you are working for yourself and you're not joining a big conglomerate like the big boys in commercial real estate, you're just kind of starting off small on your own. You have to do all those things on your own. And so really the process, procedures, what's the value proposition, what are the pain points for your clients, how do I stack up against my competition? Who is my competition? And there's just so many things you have to think about that it can be, and it is extremely challenging.
Well, it's definitely a transition. I call it an entrepreneur is what you were before because you always had that mindset, right? You always had
Absolutely.
the ability to know that, hey, you were going to drive a piece of business or you were going to drive leadership components that you had to have, right, when you were
Yeah.
managing people, right? But well, now that you transitioned over, right, over the last few years, I've seen you go even with some of these fix and flips and things. So you were doing some things before you actually went all the way. I know your wife's in the residential side of real estate and doing
Yeah.
really well. So from that beginning point, can you share a little bit too of kind of what were those first steps? How did you transition? What
Yeah.
were some of the ways that you time blocked yourself? Because now it's not like going to 9 to 5. It's
Yeah.
hey, in the morning till maybe 12 at night. So
No, you're not wrong. You hit the nail on the head. So, I've always had that spirit of I was always thinking about my work and business, even when I worked for a corporate company, making them all the money, and obviously I did well too. They took care of me financially speaking, but at the end of the day, they were making probably a lot more than I was, and so that was kind of where that spirit has always been there. My mind is constantly always thinking about how can we get better? What can we do? What can we implement? How is our strategy going to change? So that's never changed, and that's actually been rewarding in what I'm doing now. As far as the real estate side, yeah, my wife and I have done several to a dozen investment properties flipping. We've flipped or had rentals. So we've done the long-term real estate investing, the short-term real estate investing, the different tax strategies the implications around that. And we've done very well. I mean, our lowest performing flip probably made us 50,000 profit in a matter of 4 months, 5 months. Our highest performing was probably around almost about 100,000 on one property. So, the market has definitely changed now on that side of real estate compared to where it was when we're doing it, but we're in the middle of one right now. And so it's always continuous. When the opportunities come up, there's always opportunities in real estate. It's just a matter of knowing, is it a good opportunity or is there going to be thin margins and it's just not worth the amount of time and effort that we're going to want to put into it.
Neat, neat. And,
Yeah.
obviously that kind of laid the groundwork, from what I know, personally, right? That you knew some things about flipping and those types of things. But then you said to yourself, hey, my wife's dominating in residential. I'm going to tackle commercial. So what was that mindset? Because obviously it's been a transition. And from what I know,
Yeah.
and tell me if I'm wrong here, it took, 90 days, 6 months, a year to kind of,
Oh yeah.
feel yourself inside that industry
Right.
and kind of establish the name again, right?
Well, yeah, no, you're right. And just to kind of go back, I was doing the majority. I was the GC on a lot of those flips too. So I was doing all the framing, the drywall, the painting, the plumbing, the electrical. Unless it was like major electrical, then we'd hire a electrician and so on. But that allowed me to understand the world of a GC and the ins and outs of what construction looks like. And we were pulling permits in all these properties. So not only was I doing the construction, but I was doing it the right way. And so having that mentality from banking, having the mentality of understanding at a high level, I wouldn't say I was, a seasoned veteran general contractor doing it for 2 decades, but I knew enough to be dangerous and do it well. Um, so taking those two things and going into real estate, my wife wanted me to join her venture and start their commercial division for probably a year or two. She was telling me nonstop, there's an area of opportunity. I need you to come join and start this division for commercial. And honestly, I was happy in my current role. I was comfy, doing well. I had a respect of my peers. I was looked at as a leader. I influenced many people. And that's probably my biggest motivation is I love influencing others. I love empowering people, taking that average colleague and making them an all-star. There's no better feeling to see that development and growth and having them see the big picture of what my full capabilities are. And so for a while I said, no, 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 no. And finally, during COVID, I was probably the most unhappiest I've ever been in my job. Matter of fact, mentally speaking, I was probably at my lowest point I've ever been in life. And it really affected me at home. It had definitely affected me at my work performance. So that was when I took the opportunity. There was an opportunity for me to leave, and so I took it. And so my first year in commercial real estate was probably the most difficult job challenges, frustrations I've ever had in life. I hated it. Matter of fact, I almost went back to banking. I applied for a few different business banker roles, relationship manager roles, medium-sized regional banks to small community banks, because I didn't really want to go back to a national bank. They just operate differently. And I had two offers on the table to go back to banking. And then I had met this now my client, mentor, and potentially future partner in real estate and other opportunities. I met him through another contact or another relationship I formed, and I was inquiring on some of his properties because he's got a good amount of real estate. And at the end of the call, he's like, "Hey, do you want to grab coffee? I might have an opportunity for you." And I was like, "Yeah, coffee. I don't mind. I'm always open to meeting anyone. You never know where it takes you." So took the appointment. We hit it off. We have a lot of similarities. And even till today, we think similar in vision of how to do business. So I think that's why we get along so well. But he offered me an opportunity to manage his properties. If things went well, I'd start selling his real estate and start representing him. And now I represent him on his properties. We're partnering up on some different ventures. And so that really took me from year one of really considering getting out of the business, because it's extremely challenging to get past year one. I think the statistics show that like 60% of commercial brokers drop out after year one. And to make it to year three, and now I'm going on to year four, it's like 90% of people that start commercial real estate by year 3 are no longer in the business, because of the sales cycle, and it's a challenging place to be. So that's kind of where the struggles and everything, but I love it. I don't ever plan on doing anything different.
Well, there was a turning point there, right? And it made a decision. But I love the story that, look, you were having some challenges,
Yeah.
and you were thinking, okay, there's a comfort over here, and you were wanted because you got actually 2 offers. But
Yeah.
boy, how a good spouse, a good partner can influence you, right? To bring you
Sure.
into the industry. You were doing some things to learn. So Go for CEO community, if you think about chapter 2 in my book, shameless plug here,
Hmm.
the 4A formula, alignment. Sergio is about to decide 2 different offers to go back to what he used to know, and probably a
Hmm.
six-figure income and all that type of stuff, right?
Absolutely.
But all of a sudden he aligns himself with a gentleman that he meets through another gentleman. So it's a connection of a connection. And
Yep.
guess what? That changes the way he starts thinking. And in about 24 to 72 hours, it sounds like you made a decision. Oh, hold on a second. I've got an opportunity to really do what I really want
Yeah.
and take it to the next level. So awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. So look, obviously those first 6 to 12 months, like you said, were kind of brutal. But what were some things that you learned? Because obviously, as a 1099 and basically your own business, were the things that you learned? Was it more, hey, I'm not marketing myself right? Was it more like my connections aren't in this field, so I got to go outward and start meeting other people? Was it like now that you made this one connection with the gentleman, property management started becoming like, oh, okay, that's another area I can get into?
Yeah.
What were some of the things that led to the turnaround start going towards success?
The biggest ahas or learning gaps I had is, you have to understand, when I joined Keller Williams, there was just very little to no support from a standpoint of mentorship. And so everything I did, I had to learn by just doing it. I got really comfortable learning things I didn't know every day. I mean, every day there wasn't something I learned. And so the biggest things is that if I look back to where I am now to maybe year 1 or 6 months into the role, it's the biggest difference is that you have a lot of people in business that don't have the education or knowledge or know so on how to be in business. And so a lot of times they want to get in business, but they don't know how to calculate returns, how to calculate cap rates, what's involved in the management of the property. And then commercial real estate, the world, I don't know if you follow Marvel, but I would say commercial real estate is every other galaxy and world. So the world is residential, but then in commercial, there's so many segments, and then there's so many ways within each segment. And when I speak segments, I say like retail, office, industrial, land, hospitality. There's government. There's just, it can go on and on and on. And so this is why most people specialize in commercial, because to do it all is just almost impossible. And so the biggest thing for me is I was taking any deal I can get. And when I'm jumping from universe to universe, figuring in each universe, each segment of commercial operates differently, it's just a lot. It's a lot to learn. Each segment of real estate has different leasing terms. There's different ways to negotiate the deal. Commissions are paid differently. There's no set commission structure in commercial real estate. Each segment pays different. Some pay more, some pay less. But then you have different levels of commercial real estate. You have your entry level, the smaller leases, the smaller, $200,000-$300,000 mixed use properties, or multifamily, 4 or 5 spaces, units. But then you have, just like in commercial banking and corporate banking, there's different levels. So once you start getting into bigger leases and bigger deals, you're dealing with a whole nother caliber of broker. You're no longer dealing with the guys that are kind of sitting at the entry level space, you're dealing with some really heavy hitters, and you got to make sure you can match up to them, because I will tell you, the negotiating in commercial, you're being sized up by every broker on the first phone call. And they're going to know this guy's going to get the deal to the closing table, or, I don't really want to do a deal. I like his client. I don't like the broker. I don't want to do a deal with this guy or girl, this person. I don't think they know what they're doing. And so
Wow.
that's the biggest challenge, is there's just so much to learn. And without proper mentorship, the curve is much longer. Now, the good news with me is I'm a bull. I run into flames. I see red. I jump. And so I've always been comfortable with the uncomfortable. But for a lot of people, that's not the case. They need someone to show them direction and give them guidance. And I would even say hold their hand, because that's how I am. Like when I coach someone, I show coach them. I don't tell them. We go together. Like, let's go do it. Let's go sell something. Let's go meet someone. Let's go have that meeting, and we go together. And so that's another thing that's different for me in a leadership perspective, is I've always been I'll get in the trenches with you any day of the week, anytime. You tell me when. So I don't know, that's kind of where the challenges were, and kind of how I am as far as, going forward.
Well, you know what? You said a great sentence or quote there. Get comfortable being uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
They talk about having resourcefulness when you don't have a lot of resources. And that's what you did, right? You started looking at ways, okay, well, did you pick up any certain books that were, a good
Yeah.
opportunity, or did Keller or anybody online grab your attention that were teaching some things, maybe on YouTube or something? Like, what were some of the tools that, as you were learning on your own, did you
Yeah.
use internal tools? Did you use external tools? What were the things that actually helped you kind of hit that
Yeah.
learning curve?
So I am not one to do a ton of education on things. So reading books, like I don't mind reading. I like reading, but I've always just been, let's just go, let's just do it. Let's pick the phone up and let's just meet people and learn as I go. Now you gotta be careful with that. You have to be nimble, because you don't want to pick the phone up, have a great opportunity, but ruin it because you weren't prepared. Um, and so that doesn't work for everyone. Now, for me, my largest resource um, was one of my mentors, John Letourneau. So he is he's a pretty well known guy in the Illinois area for commercial, and he would be accessible via phone. So I would normally call him, bounce my ideas off of him, and from there he'd be like, "Yeah, I think you're going the right direction. Or have you considered this?" But that was to the extent of my mentorship. There was nothing else. It was that's great, and I appreciate it, but that was really all I received. As far as everything else, I will tell you, I learned more from other brokers than I have from anyone else and my clients. Now, the clients I've learned from are the ones that turned into mentor. The one gentleman I mentioned earlier. I can bounce ideas off him. I can pick his brain, or I can present things to him like, hey, if you were someone and I did this, this, and this, how would that make you feel? Or what would you think? And he'll be straight up with me. And so I would say the brokers have been the biggest asset in my learning. And that sounds crazy that I'm asking brokers, but I think I have a personality that people talk to and be, okay, this guy, I feel good with this guy. And then we talk a few more times, and then I've earned their trust and relationship, where I can almost like do the small talk, like, hey, tell me about this, or what are you doing this, or what do you pay? And they're always open to be like, yeah, they give me direction, what their thoughts are, their opinions. And so I'm always curious. I live life curious. So now I'm not afraid of being uncomfortable, but I'm always curious. And because of that curiosity, I convert, whether it's sales or relationships or whatever it is. I'm converting every opportunity possible. And so that has been where I've learned more than anything else, other brokers.
I love it. No, that's
Yeah.
what a secret sauce there, to be able to have interactions, right? And people think of it, oh, they're my competitor. No, actually, they're not. They
No.
should be someone that should be a part of wisdom. Now, obviously, not every personality clicks with each other, but
Yeah.
like you said, if you have the beginning personality of openness, of willingness, of curiosity, it's funny how human beings act the same in any industry, right? You
Yeah.
could
No,
walk
they
into
do.
banking, you could walk into commercial real estate, but if you have that curiosity, there's going to be people that go, yeah, Sergio, you should really be charging 2.5%, or,
Yeah.
you really should put a clause in that contract because this is
Yes.
happening there, right? Those types of things. So those are
Yeah.
really, really cool, scenarios that you learn from. So, okay, yeah, you're the bull in the china shop. You see red, you go.
I
So,
do. It's a good thing, but a bad thing. It just depends on the day.
hey, I can relate. In my book, I talk
Yeah.
about stories of being 12 years old and just going after it because we didn't have a
Yeah.
lot of money. So I just went and did things, right? So
Hmm.
take us through now. You're almost at your fifth year, right? That first year was
Going
a
on four.
struggle.
Going on four
Or
years.
going into 4 years. Okay, so
Yeah.
you're going into your fourth year. I know of deals that personally you've done for leases and
Yeah.
for what's called property management. You've done actual sales, right, of properties. I see your listings all the time. What
Oh.
was that? What was that transition of, picking up the deals and now dressing them up for the marketplace? What did you do to learn some of the marketing side of things, and what were some
Yeah.
tips that you could say, hey, I did maybe this a little bit different, and now
Yeah.
I'm doing it this way?
Yeah. A lot of what I base my listings on for presentation is going to be based on my competition. So when I get a listing, I look at the other listings surrounding me. I look at the saturation of the amount of listings, and then I also will base my listing marketing based on the seller's appetite to sell. But a lot of what I do is I want to make sure I have the best marketing flyers. It's clean, it's clear. It gives the specific languages and uses for that business. So if it's a lease, it's going to be each one's different and each market's different. This is why commercial can be complicated. The way you list an industrial building to land to anything is just going to be different, the different users. And so you cater it to your potential buyer, your potential leasing, the tenant, and then you make it look presentable. A lot of the biggest area of opportunity I will say in commercial real estate is a lot of the very seasoned brokers, their presentations are not the most user friendly. They're not properly marketed. Now you get on the phone with them. Now that broker is going to be amazing on the phone, but I feel there's sometimes a lack of getting the draw. When I list a property, my main goal is to get inquiries. All
Hmm.
I need is someone to call me. The moment they call me, I'll do everything, every angle I'll run, every way I can get them interested, grasp their attention. You can take that to the bank, but it's getting the inquiries is the important. So having floor plans, having the financials, having good pictures. Now, not on all of my listings do I do professional photography. It's not needed. You're not highlighting a beautiful kitchen. You're highlighting an industrial warehouse that's got maybe some oil stains. It's just a different thing, but a good picture is still important. Is it the right angle, the lighting? Does it give them an idea of what it looks like without being there? So there's a lot that goes into it, but ultimately, my main goal is if any business surrounding me has a listing, is mine better and more effective in presentation than theirs? And that's really all that matters to me when it comes to marketing a property, because I want someone to look at it and be like, ooh, that gives me a great description. That gives me an idea of what it looks like. I have the floor plan. I'm going to call this broker. And then that's all I need. From there, I'll do what I have to do to get it done.
It's so intriguing, right? When you think about supply and demand, when you have a supply and you're trying to put marketing to create demand, it's a
Yeah.
different mindset, right? It's about the visual aesthetics, the way that you impact people, the
Yeah.
words that you're seeing. I see it on LinkedIn, even when you put your messages out, it's very direct. And if I don't have an interest, I scroll right past it. But sometimes I'm like, oh, that's a cool thing. And even myself, being on the commercial banking side, not being only a YouTuber, we talk about, I'll be talking to clients and say, oh, you know what, I just saw a listing, and it could be one of yours, right? And it's so interesting because as long as those words and the messaging is right, you get that demand back to you.
Yep.
So
Yep.
pretty awesome. So, help me understand here, the GO4CEO community is always interested in operations, scaling, leadership, finance, being a finance guy, always interested in seeing, someone that goes from a nice six-figure income, cushy, like you said, comfortable, to now zero on a daily basis, and you earn what you eat. So what was that transition like, and how have you managed? Are you using any tools? Did you have to, change some things? I know you're in the fix and flip business as well, but did you have to change some things financially, knowing that paycheck wasn't coming in every 2 weeks?
Yeah, not leading with expenses. That is critical because the expenses, it can get expensive. I mean, the monthly cost for me to do business between my platforms that I need for my listings, between marketing, insurance, it's around 1,500 a month. So any additional expenses, that means I need to make 1,500 a month just to break even. And so I got to keep a close eye on expenses. And then the balance in the beginning is getting some of the big home run deals, but then you have to stack in some of the quicker deals. So you had to, outbound call for quick hit leases, network with small businesses. So your smaller business deals, your retail, your office, your industrial, those can be quick hits, typically 90 to 180-day close. But your first 6 months in commercial real estate, it's hard to make money because your pipeline, the sales cycle, you have to catch up to it. And so if you start with a new client today, a quick close is maybe 120 days. And then to get paid from the landlord or the seller's quicker, but a landlord might be half the commission now, half once they get certificate of occupancy to move into the business. So you have to stack in some small quick hits that are still going to take you 6 months to get paid on, while you're doing some of those bigger home runs that take 6 months to a year and a half to close. So the biggest thing, and I was lucky that my wife supported me for those 3 to 6 months, even though I got my first deal done. I think in 60 days I had my first deal done, which is insane. Like I've never had a concern of not getting clients. I've been blessed. But I think it's also attributed to, I take every conversation and I dig. I keep asking questions until I find an opportunity of a relationship or a sale or something that's next step. I take it to the next level. But I have that gift. Not everybody does. And so if you want to get into this type of business, you need to have reserves or have a spouse that can buy you some time, financially speaking, to still pay your bills and still live life a little bit. But definitely strap down, because if you lead with expenses and spending, it's going to be very difficult, because your first 6 months to a year, you have to get past that first year for your sales cycle to connect and catch up.
In traditional business, they call that the burn rate.
Sure.
You get $1 million funding, maybe from an angel investor or something like that, which is obviously different than this case. But man, some people go on shopping sprees. Some people dress up their office so beautifully,
They
and then
do.
forget to actually have real business come in
Don't
and
make
real
money.
payers. Yeah, so
Yeah.
real revenue. So really
Yeah.
awesome stuff. So one thing I caught at the end there is you talk about the style and the person and the type of attributes that you have to have, right, to make a transition like this.
Yeah.
Over the last couple years, I've heard, at least, I know you've brought on a couple people into the team to maybe teach them. Can you teach us or share with us a little bit about what that's been like? Obviously, you had leadership capabilities before. Has there been anything different with this type of model and your leadership approach?
Yeah, it's entirely different because there's no salary. And so it's difficult. Now, the good news is the a couple people I brought on to the team, I've been able to get them deals right away. So the one guy, he closed his first deal in 30 days. The other one
Oh,
closed
wow.
his first deal, I think, in 45 or 60 days. So I have enough business to supply them with some of the leases that are maybe more on the easier end. And obviously, I'm involved to every extent on those opportunities with those clients. So I never like, here's the deal, good luck. I'm very much involved, but the challenge is if you have to have the mentality, you got to be hungry. You have to have the eye of the tiger. Like if you are looking to join my team or join me in business and you need me to drink the water for you, it ain't gonna work. I can take you to the water, I can show you the water, but if you don't know how to drink the water, I just save yourself the trouble. I'm not in the business to micromanage you. I'm not in the business to handhold you all the time. If the reason is if you need that type of leadership from me, the other commercial brokers you work with will eat you up. They'll eat your lunch. And
Mhm.
so this business is not meant for everyone. It's meant for the people who want, will do whatever it takes to get what they need to do work wise. Obviously we're going to have ethics, but I'm willing to put 50, 60 hours a week. I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit to get where I want to go. Um, and so I did the sacrificing for 16 years of missing my kids' events, working like a dog, being the first one in, the last one out. And I still did that my first 2 or 3 years. Now it's a little bit easier. I have a rhythm, I have a routine. I can go to my kids' volleyball game at 4 o'clock. I can attend my kids' basketball game at 5. I can be my son's coach for his flag football team. But that's the mentality you have to have. And I think any business owner that's successful will tell you the same thing. It's no different. Success isn't, you're not lucky. You work hard and you get more reps and you get more wins. There's only so much luck in business.
Yeah. No, and I love the word momentum, right? Most people forget that they're about a week, 3 days, a month. Enough time with that work ethic creates momentum. In my commercial lending side, right? I remember in 2020 when I joined the organization, I went from entrepreneur back to intrapreneur. That first year, I felt the same way, man. I was like, man, these are different deals. It's different connections, different things that I'm doing. And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, bam, about a year and 2 months, and that was in the pandemic,
Yeah.
I let momentum increase. I met guys like you. I reconnected guys like you. I reconnected and I met other people. And all of
Yeah.
a sudden, now I built that network, right? Where that
Mhm.
momentum of people knowing what you do and that you're going to be in it for a while
Yeah.
now establishes you as a go-to person. So, ladies and
Sure.
gentlemen, Go4CEO channel, and community, think about that. Think about how you're transitioning into a different industry and what Sergio
Mhm.
did to put the time in, the connections, and then let that one person make that
Yeah.
strategic change. So, as we wrap up the interview, Sergio, we'd like to go over CEO, right, which is
Yeah.
client experience, and then engagement, which you shared a little bit of a kind of your leadership style, and then operational excellence, which are the tools that you use. So why don't we start first with a value proposition? When somebody watches this and they're like, man, I want to work with Sergio. That guy sounds
Sure.
like he knows his stuff in commercial real estate. What
Yeah.
is the client experience that they should expect?
It's pretty amazing. I mean, at the end of the day, keeping it simple is what I do. I don't overcomplicate things with my clients. I find out what's important to them, and we go after that. What are their goals? What are the short-term goals, long-term? What keeps you up at night? What are your challenges? And based on all those things, so what I do, and this is the experience they get, is I use everything I learned from my banking days, and I get to understand them at a high holistic level. And based on all that information, some of it may not be pertinent to their real estate, but I get to learn them. And then that all kind of trickles into their real estate and their next steps, their portfolio, in their life. And so, from a client experience, when they work with someone like me or the folks on my team, I'm training them. They get a very holistic approach to then filter down on what next steps are, what their expectations are going to be met, etc.
I love it. I love it. All right. Engagement. Obviously you have vendors you have to work with, call it real estate appraisal, call it, environmental, people that maybe do cleanup for you, construction, all these types of things. What do you do that's a secret sauce on engagement? Like, do you throw parties at the end of the year? Do you take people out for venues and events? Like, what are some of
Yeah.
the things that how you engage with your team, with your vendors,
Yeah.
with the people you do business with, clients?
I send them business. They throw big parties. They have a baby. I send them a gift. The little things there. But I send them clients and I give them quality referrals. I don't like to waste their time. The good news is, based on me being a jack of all trades kind of person, um, I know what questions to ask and get an idea before I send them business. And so they get that business. They've already got a rundown on conversations I've had, opposed to, hey, HVAC or architect, call this client, and they get nothing from me. And they call the client and like, well, I just wasted an hour of my day that I didn't have. Why would Sergio send me this? And so I don't do that. I ask a lot of information. Again, I'm curious. I live curious, man. I'm curious. I ask. I set them up for success. Where, oh, Sergio already told me this, this, and this. Does that sound right? Okay, yeah, great. So no, they're not gonna repeat themselves. Not my client, not the partner. It's just a lot more seamless, easier, and it saves everybody's time. And then I get to know what's going on, so I can follow up with that partner. I can follow up with the client. I'm in the know, and so that's what I do. And ultimately, I don't think a lot of my partners and people, yeah, the parties are fun, but at the end of the day, all they care about is their bank account from Sergio getting deposits or always withdrawals. If it's always a withdrawal for wasting my time, they're not going to want to be in business with me.
I love that. I'm gonna have to clip that one. That's pretty cool, right? So
Okay.
make deposits, ladies and gentlemen,
More
not as many
deposits.
withdrawals.
More
So I love it.
deposits.
I
They
love it.
like that more.
Well, the
Yeah.
last one is operational excellence, right? And I know before we got on camera, we talked a little bit about one of the tools that you use, CoStar, and those things. So why don't you tell us, like, obviously, I know for my own life, I've been on podcasts where I shared, like, sometimes it's hard. I mean, when you get 15, 20 calls in a day and three or four of them are real deals, five or
Yeah.
six of them are not good deals, and then four or five of them are, just fluffy type of relationship ones, you
Sure.
could lose track with things. So what are the things that you've been doing and maybe even changed in the 4 years to make you streamlined, take notes better? Are you using any AI tools nowadays? What are some things that you do from a operational excellence?
Yeah, so we rely heavily on our CRM for all of our contacts, data. Um, so I have different segments. I have brokers. I have the segments of commercial real estate, retail, office, industrial, etc. And so when I get opportunities, I'll run that opportunity through those people that they whatever their specialty or an investor or a client. They'll get to see what's going on. As far as AI, we are in the so there's a bigger picture opportunity I'm currently working on that I think in the next month or two or next month, you'll see some special announcements. And so we are working with AI with that opportunity. And I mean, right now, the extent of what I use AI for is mostly around emails, um, data. So, I'll talk to my AI, tell me about, the Fed Powell's remarks. How do you think that's going to impact retail, industrial? So whatever segment of commercial real estate, I'll ask about the labor market statistics. So I use AI as a tool to gain knowledge while I'm working on something else and just have conversations. I call my chat GPT, her name's Luna. And Luna and I, so while I'm working on items, I'll just learn about the markets. I'll learn about specific segments, what the big players are doing in commercial real estate. I'll look at a national level, international level. So how much business is coming in from Mexico to the United States? Internationally, who are the big players in Chicago internationally? Who should I be talking to? And AI tells me all that information without me having to touch a single key on my keyboard. And so that's how I use AI. I do think there's a lot more capabilities that are there for me that I'm not quite using yet. But I think with this new partnership I'm working on, you'll start to see more of that because we'll have more people in place and more time and more hands on deck.
I love it. Well, I'm gonna have to figure out a name for my AI because I started talking to it
Uh-huh.
a couple weeks ago. I had an interview where the lady said, "Hey, don't use prompts anymore. Try to talk to it because it starts to
Yeah.
learn the way you think, the way that your
Yeah.
cadence of how you are asking things and stuff like that." So from a voice
Mhm.
influx and a voice prompt perspective, it's a really cool thing. So you've
She
challenged
didn't
me
want to
to.
give me a name. I had to force her, or it. I had to force it to give it. She's like, I don't have a name. And I'm like, well, pick a name. Like, I don't want to just refer you. Like, I need a name. It was the hardest time. Finally, she gave in and said, okay, I'll be called Luna. And I
Wow,
was
that
like,
is hilarious.
done. It was awesome,
All right.
actually. Yeah.
Sweet, sweet. Well, hey, Sergio, thanks so much for coming out to the
Yeah.
GO4CEO channel. The community really enjoys hearing these stories, and what one that is so impactful, where you go from that entrepreneur, right, managing millions and people and leadership, to be creating millions out of a
Yeah.
different industry that you had some knowledge of in the commercial and residential space, with the GC aspects and the things that you were doing personally, but going all in and making something of it over the
Yeah.
last 3 to 4 years. So congrats to that. So how can people get a hold of you? What's the best way to really communicate? And if they're
Yeah.
interested in having you represent them or share them with a strategy in commercial real estate,
Mhm.
what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I mean, the two best ways, you can shoot me a call at 630-776-9082. You can Google search ERT commercial. So we are Essence Realty Team Commercial, is what the ERT stands for. You can email me at ertcommercial@gmail.com. But I'm always open to any conversation. The one thing I do pride myself on is I pick up my phone up. And if I don't pick up, I normally text you back. I'll call you back. And so, yeah, love the opportunity to connect with anyone that finds value.
Now, that's operational excellence right there, right? Knowing that, hey, you may not be able to pick up the phone every time, but a quick text, the messages that come out, can I call you later? Those type of
Yeah,
things. I know that I use that a ton, and then I line them up for callbacks. So really
absolutely.
cool stuff, man. Well, thanks so much. I appreciate you coming on, and looking forward to
Yeah,
having you back on
thank
over the next
you.
6 to 12, 18 months. And by the way, GO4CEO channel members and people that have come on, subscribe to the channel. Come on, let's keep this thing going.
Yes,
Help a
subscribe.
brother out. Have people like Sergio that are real people in neighborhoods that
Yeah.
and cities and towns that are making transitions and growing and becoming the CEO of their own life, right? So, and by the way,
Mhm.
the 4A formula comes out, looks like it's going to be October 1st to October
Nice.
6th. Excited to have that on. And the Go4CEO, Go G number 4 CEO .com will be releasing shortly. So thanks so
Mhm.
much, Sergio. Have a great day.
Nice job, John. Thanks for having me.